Hi everyone, I'm Jackie the Bud Mom. Today I'm going to be making a video about how to handle your rabbit. A natural part of wanting to get a pet rabbit is being able to interact with them. However, every animal comes with a different set of needs, so how we treat them is going to have to accommodate to that. Unfortunately, most people are pretty used to dog and cat behavior, which doesn't always translate to rabbits. So when we handle rabbits like something that they aren't, we put them at risk of being unsafe, unhappy, or uncomfortable. So today, we are going to be clearing up some misinformation and getting educated on how to handle your rabbits correctly. I also just want to clarify that when I say handling a rabbit, I'm not just referring to picking up a rabbit or holding them. I'm also referring to sharing a space with them, showing affection to them, and just interacting with them. I could probably make individual videos about each of these topics, so this video is just going to be a bit more of a broad discussion about some ways that we can properly handle rabbits. Alright, let's talk about some basic rabbit information that's going to help us tackle this topic. Rabbits are tough little dudes that need to be handled gently. They're prey animals with not a lot of natural defense mechanisms to help them feel safe. In the wild, rabbits always have to be on the lookout for predators, so this makes them pretty easy to scare and kind of skittish. While domesticated rabbits don't have any natural predators, they can still perceive things that scare them as life-threatening. So as rabbit caretakers, we need to learn what makes rabbits feel unsafe so we can avoid doing them. We also want to make sure the way we handle them promotes their safety and their comfort. Alright, let's talk about a rabbit's fear responses and why it's so important that we know these. So when a rabbit is frightened, it triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response. A fight response to fear can cause a rabbit to bite, scratch, kick, or box something that they perceive as threatening. A flight response can cause a rabbit to run or hide from something they perceive as threatening. And a freeze response is actually dangerous for rabbits to exhibit. What I mean by this is rabbits have a natural defense mechanism called a trance. This is kind of like a last resort defense mechanism they use against predators. If a predator has already caught them, they go into a trance which makes them appear dead or in a relaxed state to the predator. This might cause them to relax their grip or become less aware of the rabbit, giving them a chance to escape. However, it's very unsafe for domesticated rabbits to go into a trance. It causes unhealthy stress levels and dangerously increases their heart rates. And rabbits are prone to heart problems, so they can actually die from going into a trance or going into a trance too often. I also just want to mention that rabbits can go into shock when they're suddenly frightened, and they can actually die from this too. Here's why it's so important we know all this. Rabbits are not vocal animals. It's kind of rare that you're going to hear them make vocalizations. They also don't change their facial expressions, and that's one of the ways we humans recognize emotion. And as prey animals, they try to hide any discomfort they have because in the wild, that could make them more vulnerable. So people often have a hard time figuring out how their rabbit is actually feeling, or they might misinterpret their behaviors as something that it's not. So some people may misinterpret a rabbit's fear responses as something positive when it's not the case. So now that we've talked about their fear responses, let's talk about ways that we should be handling rabbits. First, let's talk about picking up your rabbit. Rabbits in general don't like to be picked up. In the wild, they would never get picked up unless it was from a predator, so this isn't something that they're naturally comfortable with. However, we can do it in a way that promotes their comfort and still makes them feel safe. So here's what I've learned in picking up my rabbits. You're going to want to approach them in a way that still makes them feel calm. So if you aren't nervous and you're confident in your ability to pick them up, they'll be more likely to trust that. When you go to pick them up, you're going to want to support their butts in their middle area so they know that their weight is being supported. You're going to want to have a gentle grip on them, and with steady and confident movements, you can go ahead and lift them up to you. You're also going to want to be patient with your rabbits because they're often skittish and not a lot of rabbits will like being picked up. So you're going to want to respect that they may not want to get picked up and only be picking them up when they're comfortable with it or when it's necessary. That's fair. Now let's talk about holding your rabbit. Holding your rabbit is really similar to picking them up. You're always going to want to make sure that their butt and middle area is supported, but there are multiple ways that are correct in terms of holding your rabbit. You're going to want to make sure that you're holding them with a sturdy grip just so that they can't fall over and they feel like they're being supported, and if they do try to squirm away, they don't end up hurting themselves. You want to make sure that you're still calm and confident while you're holding them so they know that they can trust you. And you're still only going to want to really be holding them when they're okay with it or when it's necessary. Rabbits would not usually like to be held because it feels so weird to them, so that's just something we're going to want to respect in terms of how they would like to be treated. Next, let's talk about sharing space with a rabbit. You're going to want to make sure that the space that they live in is free from anything that could harm them, such as objects that could easily fall over and injure them, or cords that they could chew on and hurt themselves, or anything that if they tried to eat would cause them harm. You also want to make sure that their environment is free from any loud noises or any sudden movements, as this kind of just makes them nervous and makes them more anxious. And finally, you also want to make sure that your rabbit isn't around any other animals without being supervised. I'm a big fan of rabbits interacting with other animals. My dog loves my rabbits and my rabbits love my dog, but I never allow her to be around my rabbits without my supervision. So even if you trust your rabbits and trust your other animals completely, you're still going to want to supervise them. Next, let's talk about interacting with them. So rabbits are, as I said before, prey animals. So one of the best ways to interact with them is getting on their level. And by that, I quite literally mean they're pretty small, so you're going to want to get low to the ground. And essentially, they're going to understand rabbit behavior more than they're going to understand human behavior. So how you interact with them is going to have to mimic that a little bit. As I said, you're going to want to get low to the ground, and you're going to want to give them pets similar to how they would give each other pets. They love getting groomed on their head, so feel free to give them little head scratches. Some also enjoy getting their cheeks rubbed. You can go ahead and rub their cheeks. And this is a bit less often that they like this, but sometimes they like full body pets. Another way that rabbits seem to interact with people is quite literally just by sharing space with them. You don't always need to be carrying them or cuddling them for them to know that you love them. Sometimes they just like sitting next to you. Sometimes you can just talk to them and they seem to enjoy it. Or you can give them little gifts, like give them some toys that they can play with or some treats. So now that we've talked about the proper ways to be handling a rabbit, let's talk about some common mistakes we can avoid. First and foremost, we never want to put a rabbit into a trance, either intentionally or unintentionally. I see this happen sometimes because people will misinterpret a trance as a rabbit being very relaxed. So it's really important that we all understand what a trance is and that it is unsafe for rabbits. And rabbits don't actually control when they go into a trance. You might trigger it and they might go into that response automatically, and so you think that your rabbit is just super relaxed by whatever you're doing, but it's really just triggered a response that physiologically is causing them a lot of stress. So we also want to avoid holding them in a way where their belly is exposed. That can make them feel very vulnerable, and that can also trigger a trance. We also want to avoid handling rabbits in a rough manner. They are little guys who are pretty fragile, so we just don't want to hurt them unintentionally. We want to definitely avoid holding them by the scruff or the nape of their necks. It will hurt a rabbit to hold them this way. And what's worse is if they try to kick while you're holding them that way, they can actually injure themselves too. And like I said earlier, we want to avoid holding them or carrying them when they don't want to be held or carried, unless it's necessary. And we want to avoid putting them in situations that they might perceive as life-threatening. I know that sounds maybe obvious, but it's important to know. And again, we don't want to expose them to other animals without supervision. Accidents can happen, and we'd rather err on the side of caution. So now that we've covered the things that we want to avoid when handling our rabbit, let's do a quick little review. So we want to make sure that we're interacting with our rabbits in a way that they enjoy, they can feel safe with, and that they're comfortable with. Just because a rabbit might not like being held or carried doesn't mean that they don't want affection or contact with you. You can cuddle them by giving them pets on some of their favorite spots, like their cheeks, their ears, their heads, and sometimes their bodies. You can also try laying on the floor with them and allowing them to climb over you. They're very curious animals, so they're going to like to explore you in this way. It's also fun to learn how each individual rabbit likes to receive affection. Bizu loves to get little head pets all the time for extended periods of time. Haku doesn't always want this, and sometimes you can just show her affection by laying on the ground next to her. And rabbits don't need to be exposed to dangerous or intense situations for them to be stimulated. You can stimulate your rabbits to keep them active by providing them with toys that they like, by spending time with them, or introducing them to new objects or areas that they can explore. And if you yourself want to make some toys for your rabbits, I actually made a video about that and I'll include that here. So it's important for us as rabbit caretakers to understand how bunnies communicate fear and discomfort. That way we can avoid doing things that might cause them to feel unsafe or make them feel uncomfortable. If we do our parts to learn about them and to respect them, they'll get more comfortable around us, trust us more, and we can develop deeper bonds and friendships with our bunnies. So I hope this video was in some way helpful to you. This is some information that I kind of wish I had known when I got my rabbits, and it's some of this I had to learn on the way, and it makes me a bit sad that, I wasn't treating them initially in ways that they really would have appreciated. So I hope that this helps you and your rabbit. I hope that you guys go on to develop some beautiful friendships as a result of respecting each other. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them if I can. If you liked the video, leave it a like. If you did not, feel free to dislike. And I like mentioning this, but show some love to some animals today if you have the opportunity to. You deserve it and they definitely deserve it. So have a great day, everybody.